everybody, welcome to another episode of Cannabis Tech Talks, brought to you by Polyscience and Summit Research. You are chopping it up with Chuck. I'm the editor-in-chief here with Cannabis and Tech Today. We always bring you the goods, and today is no different. We have with us today Jesse Horton. He is the CEO of LOWD. That is, I want to make sure I get this right, Love Our Weed Daily, and he is from Portland, Oregon. And welcome, Jesse. It's great to have you here.
What's up? I'm very happy to be here. Really enjoying the show so far.
Nice to have a Pacific Northwestern here. I grew up in the state of Washington, was stationed in Fort Lewis, so whenever we wanted to get away, we always would go from Fort Lewis down to Portland, me and my buddies, and we'd get away from all the Army and just chill down there. Yeah. So I got a lot of great memories in Portland, and it's cool to have a Northwesterner here.
Yeah, I love the PNW. I think we have the best weed in the country.
I love to hear that, because you know what? Everybody thinks they got the best weed, and I truly believe that we might have some of the best in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah.
So tell the audience a little bit about your background, because you have got a lot going for you, and we're very lucky to be able to talk to you. So yeah, just let them know a little bit about your background and some of your accomplishments.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Jesse Horton. My background before getting into the cannabis industry was in engineering. So
okay.
I spent about 8 years with Siemens, doing a lot of different engineering assignments, some energy and environmental business unit work. And after my trip in Munich, I was in Munich for about 1.5 years working at headquarters. I got lucky enough to get relocated to the Pacific Northwest and started growing in my basement and never looked back. A lot of people know me for co-founding the Minority Cannabis Business Association. I've done a lot of nonprofit work. New Leaf Project in Portland, Oregon has given out now $2 million in grants and 0% interest loans to black and brown cannabis businesses. A lot of it with the help of Ben from Ben & Jerry's, one of our biggest sponsors there. So I've been doing a lot of nonprofit work, but mainly my focus is cannabis consulting, utilizing my engineering background in the cultivation space to really find efficiency and grow some of the best weed that we can.
That's really awesome that you have that background. When did you start growing in your basement? What year?
I started growing in my basement in 2012.
Okay.
So this year is 10 years now that I've actually been working with cannabis.
Yeah, have you gotten better?
Hell yeah, I think so. I'd like to believe so, but
yeah.
You know, most growers is always an evolution, right? So we've never quite made it.
Yeah.
Always trying to get better each and every day.
Yeah, and to the people that are watching, growing weed is not easy, right? You don't just plant it and water it and go, right?
You know what? Growing weed is fairly easy, but growing good weed is very difficult.
I got you.
It is a weed, so it can grow in some of the craziest conditions, not optimal, but what you get is going to be vastly different, right, if it is in the optimal condition throughout its growth cycle.
Yeah, okay. So tell us a little bit about the Minority Cannabis Business Association. Where did that all come from? What was the thinking behind that, and how did that get started?
Yeah, so when I got into the industry, I knew that I benefited a lot from associations and programs and kind of ladders of assistance in the corporate world. So when I got into cannabis, there really wasn't anything like that. That I knew I could benefit from, but at the same time, I was understanding what was happening, and that the history of cannabis arrests were causing a dynamic in the newly developed industry that, you know, some of these disproportionately affected communities, black community, my community, other communities, were not finding their way into the industry. We're not getting over the taboo aspect of, jumping into cannabis, or were afraid that they would get arrested first. So there was a lot of misinformation, a lot of doors that needed to be opened. So I joined with some really dope people, and we decided to start that nonprofit. And they're here today. They're still running. I stepped down in 2017 just to focus more on LOWD and building that business.
That's cool. So what do you think is... do you think the industry's doing it right? You know, we hear a lot about social equity. We see different states that are coming online, New York, stuff like that. They're trying to find the right way to make sure that, communities that were disproportionately affected in the stupid ass war on drugs and everything, that they can be represented now and they can go, cash in on it and stuff like that. Do you think they're doing a good job?
Yeah, I think, yes and no, and some people might be surprised to hear me say yes. And I say that because when we first started in the cannabis industry, social equity, it wasn't even a thing, right? No one was talking about it.
Yeah.
Now, social equity at some level is at the table in every legalization discussion, right? In every discussion of forming the industry, that is a topic. So I think in that regard, yes, we're doing it right and understanding how important it is, right? Understanding that it needs to happen. But as far as the logistics, how it happens, how it's rolled out, there's definitely a lot to be desired in what different states are doing and how, ineffective we've been in so many ways.
Yeah. And it's kind of like that saying, we've come a long way, but still we got so far to go.
Exactly right.
That's how it kind of feels to me. And anytime you've got government involved and you've got money involved, it seems like it's going to get bogged down. And you know what I mean? It's a great idea, but the devil's in the details. Yeah, exactly. And who gets the licenses and everything like that.
Yeah. I think the main issue is, of course, funding and financing is a big one, right? And hopefully things open up more there as we continue to develop with the industry. But also, a lot of times there's arbitrary time limits on when company needs to open up, right? I've heard 4.5 months, a year.
Yeah.
To be honest, man, it took me 8 years to get from my basement to an actual cultivation facility where I could actually compete in the market. So I think these arbitrary time limits are really hurting a lot of entrepreneurs and the industry as a whole.
Yeah. What about access to capital? Because even if it opens it up, to where you can, go to get a license or you could do something like that, you gotta have some wedge.
Yeah.
You gotta be getting, capital to even get in the game, and that's a barrier to entry for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a massive barrier to entry. When I first got started in Oregon, it was great because we can kind of bootstrap, right?
Yeah.
We were in the medical program.
Yeah.
We can add 5 lights and then, sell that to a dispensary, add 5 more lights.
Scale slowly.
And really slowly scale. And unfortunately, many entrepreneurs don't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, capital is even more important, right? And having all up front, having it available, ready to spend, and not kind of piecemealing it as we were able to do. So certainly capital is a really big problem. And through my nonprofit New Project, we've been able to make a dent in at least some entrepreneurs' journey. But there's still a long way to go, as you said.
So tell us about Ben & Jerry's and why that's your favorite flavor of ice cream.
Yeah, in case Ben is watching, it is my favorite ice cream, without a doubt.
Those guys are cool as hell.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah, Ben Cohen is he's a great leader in business as a whole. He's done, as we know, great things with Ben & Jerry's. He's done a lot of work with helping other entrepreneurs throughout the years, even before cannabis. And now with his new cannabis venture, I'm lucky enough to be the president of the board, along with other dope people like Killer Mike, former Senator Nina Turner, and a lot of other really dope people on the board. Dr. Cornell West was on the board. He actually stepped down recently. So we're working with Ben to try to, of course, develop a dope cannabis brand, right? Something that really is effective. People like low dose cannabis as well as higher potency cannabis, but also utilizing those dollars to put back into other entrepreneurs, put back into criminal justice, a lot of different causes that we feel like the cannabis industry can help with. So we're doing a lot of cool work with his company up in Vermont. Ben & Jerry's has always been on the forefront of sustainability,
of kind of like, responsible capitalism, stuff like that. Like they're a brand that not only makes bomb-ass ice cream, but I just respect the hell out of them, because there's some brands that make the money and run and they don't care.
Yeah.
And I really do feel like, Ben & Jerry's, they just seem like they care. They have a heart, and that's that thing that sometimes is missing in capitalism. You know what I mean? If you have capitalism without a heart, man, it's rough.
He's been a shining star of that, right?
Yeah.
Conscious capitalism with the heart. And he's almost a hero in the cannabis industry, right?
Yeah.
Because of their connection to cannabis. They've always kind of, tilted a hat to cannabis and some of their flavors and things like that.
Right.
Half-Baked is one of my favorite ones. So they've always been connected and a supporter. And now
Cherry
he
Garcia.
has a chance to get into Cherry Garcia, right. Now that he gets a chance to get into the industry, I really hope, I'm going to do everything to make sure that they win, and I hope that the cannabis community really supports their efforts.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, I think I saw a meme on it. I don't know if it's true or not, but are they trying to make a cannabis-infused ice cream? Because that seems like the perfect delivery vehicle, right? High in fat and sugar and a little THC in there. Is that Is that like a rumor, or is that really a thing?
You know, when I first got involved with Ben and his cannabis efforts, right, we're trying to decide what to do. And I'm like, man, of course you got to have ice cream.
Yes.
What are we talking about here? Let's move the agenda to the next item. But I would imagine that Ben probably has some non-competes with Ben and Jerry's, you know, and him coming out with a new ice cream might not, you know, dive with that business plan. But I'm not sure.
We got to let that cool off for a minute.
Yeah, but I would imagine that might have something to do with it.
Yeah. So tell us about LOWD.
Wow, LOWD, Love Our Weed Daily is really just, it exemplifies who I am, I am in the cannabis industry, who my friends are, people that I smoke with, consumers who are very highly discerning, really love craft quality weed, love new genetics, love fresh weed, just love, you know, the premium aspect of the industry, and that's what we focus on within LOWD. So we are a cultivation facility. We produce flower, we also do pre-rolls.
Yes.
And we're actually also opening up a vertically integrated facility right now, so we're going through the process of building that out. And, you know, we just think there's a really big gap in the industry for companies who really want to wave the flag for cannabis culture.
Yeah.
So many companies are trying to identify the new consumers, are trying to get the new customers, and we want to double down on, you know, the heavy smokers, the real smokers.
Yeah, I get that, right? There's people like, oh, we got to get the soccer moms, and oh, we got to get the, you know what I mean, the grandmas and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But don't forget your core. You know, don't forget your base. They're the ones that have always been there, and they're the ones that are always going to be there, and they're probably going to spend a lot of money in that space. So that seems like a good move.
And they feel, I think, a little alienated in a lot of ways in the industry, right? People have seen cannabis culture as taboo.
Yes.
They're getting away from, you know, the typical cannabis marketing, no greens in your colors, or, you know, no talking about cannabis. And, you know, there's a lot of there that I think, you know, people like myself feel like the industry is forgetting about the people who kind of started things and the people who opened up the doors. And like you said, the people who are going into dispensaries and they're buying an ounce versus buying a pre-roll, right? Or versus buying one edible, right? Those are the people that we want.
Yeah. That just made me cringe thinking of buying one edible, man. I gotta have 20, man. I like edibles.
Yeah, right.
I'm always running out. No, okay, so that's interesting. You mentioned culture and cannabis culture. I was, you know, graduated high school in the 90s and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of, you know, hip hop music. And, you know, back then it wasn't always cool to listen to hip hop, right? Like people had their genre. It was rock, it was country, it was hip hop. And if you listened to rap, you were kind of like in your own little thing. But fast forward now with cannabis being so big, you know, hip hop, I feel like kind of started destigmatizing cannabis before everybody else did, and maybe they should get a little more credit for that.
Oh, without a doubt.
You know what I mean? Mainstreaming it, right? Like hearing about it in songs, and, you know, kids like me, teenage suburban white kids, you know, hearing about cannabis over and over again and stuff, and all of a sudden it didn't seem so scary. It didn't seem so, you know, the DARE program told us that it was like heroin and stuff like that. So I think you know, hip hop and, you know, even movies like How High and stuff like that, right? It mainstreamed it and kind of got so that when we got a little bit older and legalization was happening, we felt kind of friendly towards the plant.
Yeah, exactly right. No, I think you're 100% right. And I mean, even dating back, you know, hip hop, but then, you know, the jazz musicians, there's a dope documentary on Netflix called Grass is Greener. And I'm in there with Fab Five Freddy, who did a lot of stuff with MTV, and he's an artist and really had a lot of history in New York. And he did a documentary. Yeah, exactly. Did a documentary that's focused on music and cannabis and the combination. Talked a lot about hip hop, but also all the way back to jazz musicians and things like that. And it's interesting because actually the movie that made me, you know, I probably shouldn't say this because it might be seen bad, but made me want to smoke or made me feel like, hey, I want to try that with Friday. Yeah. You know, and I saw Friday, I'm like, wow, that seems pretty cool. And, you know, Chris Tucker and Ice Cube, of course, hip-hop.
You didn't want to be in the chicken coop, right?
No, I didn't want to smoke what Chris was smoking in that one, right? Right. The angel dust.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but cannabis definitely seemed a little bit more, a little bit less harmful, right, to me at that point. So I decided to give it a go. I'm glad I did. Yeah,
100%. And I also feel like there's something about cannabis that it's a social thing, right? Like you can smoke by yourself, you know, but it's different when you smoke with your friends or you smoke with your girl. It's a social thing, right? puff, puff, pass, right? You're with it. You know, I'm a veteran, and I talk to a lot of veterans that use cannabis instead of the shit that they give them at the VA that has all kinds of side effects and, you know, opioids and like that. They use cannabis, and it helps them a lot with PTSD and stuff, because not only is it what the cannabis does, but they talk. They smoke and they talk with their brothers, right, in the circle. And when they talk, that's therapy.
Yeah, man.
You know, like the plant just lends itself to helping you talk through things. You know, it's got, of course, the medical benefits, but I just really feel like, man, it's been shit on. Yeah. Cannabis has been shit on ever since the early 1900s, and it's got a bad rap, and it doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, I think that's the main reason why we need to build an industry that is inclusive, right, of everyone that consumes. We all know so many people consume cannabis. It doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter your color, your age, demographic, ethnicity, you know, political affiliations. Everyone, you're right, in some form consumes cannabis in those demographics. It
pulls at like 70%, you know?
Yeah, so the idea that, you know, all those different people don't see a place for themselves in the industry, I think hurts the growth of the industry as a whole.
Yeah. But isn't it weird to think about that, you know, the U.S. had its reasons, you know, and there's a lot of reasons for it, why they, you know, demonized it and made it illegal and everything like that. But they did it around the world.
Yeah.
You know, like hemp was our friend for so long. And like, you know, we got away from hemp. Isn't it weird that sort of followed all the way around the world?
Well, people take the lead of America, I think, in a lot of ways. And that's why you're also seeing cannabis legalization start to happen all over the world, is because, you know, the things that are happening in America. Yeah, yeah.
Are you excited for international? You know, like they're talking about Germany, maybe Colombia, you know, some of these big leaders, they legalize, then, you know, one domino goes and then the rest of them follow. Do you think that's going to happen pretty soon?
Yeah, I am excited about the, you know, the global opportunities in cannabis, but I think, you know, most small entrepreneurs, small business entrepreneurs like myself in this industry are really focused on finding the efficiencies right within our facility, are focused on building solid teams so that we can actually survive and win in our protected state markets, right? You know, and then hopefully move to interstate commerce. So, you know, I am excited, but to me it's kind of a far in the distance.
It's like, hey, that's cool. I got to worry about my backyard.
Exactly, right. Exactly,
and by the way, what is the market like in Oregon now? Because a few years ago, we heard it was kind of like, you know, there was too much weed. It was kind of a race to the bottom. Has that mellowed out a little bit now? What's kind of the state of Oregon?
Yeah, I think the entire cannabis industry as a whole really benefited from a lot of the activities that were happening during COVID, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people at home, a lot more disposable income in many cases. So there was definitely an uptick during that period, and now we've dropped back down to normal. But I'll tell you, the companies that, you know, operate the most efficiently, the companies that have the premium products, the companies that have a connection to consumers and have some level of brand loyalty, with, you know, as much as we've been able to get at this point, really don't have a difficult time, even in, you know, the most saturated markets. I believe Oregon and Portland is the most saturated market in the country. We're still doing well, and I think that, you know, that's going to hold true throughout the country.
I like to hear that. That makes me feel good, you know, because you know, Oregon was one of the first states, right?
That's right.
And you know, when you're one of the first, you're a trailblazer. You're going to go through some things and, you know, figure it out. But yeah, I feel like Oregon, Colorado, where I live, Washington, you know, those states kind of seem like they're doing a pretty good job, and I think that some other states and even Canada have kind of bungled it up and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I'm happy to see, and I think that this is just going to get better and better, you know, as we work out the kinks and the market starts to, you know, start to figure things out and everything like that.
Yeah.
So we're Cannabis and Tech today. You're an engineer of your background. What kind of technology excites you about the industry?
Yeah, you know, so of course, when I was in engineering, there was a lot of controls that we did, a lot of
Siemens.
automation. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, when I first came to MJBiz, I actually did a presentation on the potential of really implementing more controls, PLCs, and things like that into cultivation spaces. And, you know, it wasn't very prevalent at the time, and people didn't quite understand some of the things that I was discussing. But that has evolved, I think, in a lot of ways. There's a lot of solution providers, integrators here today. And I'm excited about really the evolution of that, getting more data, working with working with organizations like Resource Innovation Institute and getting more data so that we can make better decisions in the cultivation spaces, I think is probably the most important thing over the next few years.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. Data, it's always important in every industry. Yeah. Well, let the audience know where can they find you. This is a great opportunity for you to give some shout outs. How can people get a hold of you if they want to do some business or they want to chop it up or whatever?
Of course, you can catch us at LOWD. LOWD is online, LOWD.com. You can hit me up on Instagram, Jesse Horton. And my consulting company, Plant Fidelity Solutions. Please reach out to us, reach out to me, and we love to work with companies who are maybe new licensees, current licensees who are in that process of working to do design with engineers, sourcing products, and want to do it in a way that is cost efficient, right? Because it can really be brutal at that point, and affording some of those costs. So finding efficiencies there, but also building those facilities in a way that they can be competitive 5-10 years from now, right? As the market starts to get more saturated, which is what's going to happen everywhere in the country. These cultivation facilities have got to operate in ways that make them competitive, right? Even in the most premium of markets.
That's great. All right, well, they are getting ready to pull me off stage. There's a red light blinking right now, so we're going to have to wrap this up. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cannabis Tech Talks, brought to you by Polyscience and our friends at Summit Research. We always bring you the goods. Today was no different. Jesse Horton of LOWD, I'm telling you, get a hold of this guy. He knows his shit. He's an engineer. He is on the front line of all this business. Check out LOWD if you're in Portland. I'm going to go to Portland. I'm going to check out LOWD. I want to find you. I want to shake your paw. I want to smoke some weed. And for the rest of you out here watching this, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, share, do that thing that you do. But make sure you tune in next time for Cannabis Tech Talks. You've been chopping it up here with Chuck, and we'll see you next time, coming to you live from MJBiz. And don't forget, if you're at MJBiz, look for our new magazine. We got Calvin Johnson on the cover, Megatron. He's here running around, catching footballs, signing autographs. And look for golden tickets, because we're giving away a bunch of killer prizes in our golden ticket promo presented by STM Canna. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time with Cannabis Tech Talks.
Hey, hello, I'm Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong. Wait, you didn't think people would know who I am? Durachill. This is Durachill. This is Durachill. This is Durachill. No, hey, I don't talk like that. You want me to sell this? Buy it. Try Durachill or else. If you want something really nice in your laboratory, buy Durachill. You can't go wrong.